pink wizard hats or knee-high striped stockings might not seem like something you'd see an X-Men wearing, but it might surprise you what is hiding in their closets. Changeling, I've talked about this mutant a few times. He is the telepathic shifter that pretended to be Professor X, so Professor X could go underground to prepare for an alien invasion, had an identity crisis, decided to be a good guy after getting a cancer diagnosis, zombie version of him shapeshifted into Elvis to help out She-Hulk in a car chase. Hope that's all ringing a bell. So yeah, normally we talk about his powers, his life story, but today we are talking about his original outfit because what is he wearing? Blue morph suit base, which is fun because the alternate universe version of him is named Morph. Honestly, the body of it all is fine. It's the helmet. What is that? Who made that? Changeling can change the appearance of his costume at will, and that's what he picked. I have tried to find the reason he wears this helmet, but the truth is the character isn't that popular, so there really isn't much. I did find one hilarious description online. The most interesting thing about you is that ludicrous purple turnip of a hat. Sums it up, methinks. It must have something to do with the fact that he has telepathic powers, but I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what it has to do with that. Sound off in the comments down below if you know what is going on with the purple turnip. Again, with the headpieces for this X-Men, Feral sporting some sky-high hair, or fur. Feral is her name. Love that choice. She's completely feral. I don't know how to feel about her hair, fur, though. It's so pointy and so high. Somehow she is outdoing the original Wolverine look. Her actual clothing follows a similar style to her hair, having very pointy and high shoulders. I feel like she is in a 80s rock band and has yet to reveal that fact. Feral is like an animal. She has sharp claws and teeth. Her mutation makes her very fast and she has heightened senses. She also has a healing factor, of course, and a tail. The tail is very long and very strong. She can support herself with just the tail should she need to. Her most interesting ability, in my opinion, would have to be intangibility. She gained this ability during her ghost era. Yes, she did die, like most Marvel characters. As a ghost, she could easily pass through things. I showed a picture of Feral to my roommate. First words out of her mouth: what would that look like in 3D? She has a point. How big is the hair in real life? Ava Dara, or Warbird, is a soldier for the Shi'ar Empire. That means she gets soldier armor because she goes into battle a lot. She is in the army. Not that I really know what going into battle is like, but I watch TV, I read, and you generally want to protect soft parts and major organs in your chest area. Tell me why her entire middle section is completely exposed in a big cross. Nothing there that we can see. Hopefully there's like an invisible shield type of situation she put there to show off, but I really don't think so. Is it a show of power? I'm exposing everything because you will never get close kind of thing? It's poor design in my opinion. Fun design, she looks great, but it's not proper battle armor. The rest of the armor is fine. Her legs, her arm, and her head are good. It's just the heart and major organs that are out. Warbird is a strong fighter, expert markswoman, and very well trained in hand-to-hand combat, plus she has an energy sword, so she is equipped to brawl when she needs to. The Cyclops outfit that debuted right after Avengers X-Men in 2012 was not a favorite in comparison to other Cyclops fits. No, it didn't measure up, but it didn't look completely awful, but it was kind of impractical. There are already so many things you just have to ignore in the Marvel Universe, or you just kind of have to take it at face value, or else you'll find no enjoyment here. But this outfit just makes no sense for the character. So usually Cyclops wears a visor to help prevent random like optic blasts. The good thing about the visor is that it makes sense. If he needs to remove it, he can do so easily. It makes sense that something could be built into the visor to prevent the random optic blasts. So when the new fit dropped in 2012, there were a lot of questions. The suit itself is forgettable but fine, just a red suit with lines on it. It's the head section that is weird, again with the helmets and heads and masks. So instead of a visor, he just has an X. X across the eyes. Not sure what the X is made of, presumably fabric, but then what fabric is going to prevent optic blasts? Maybe it's made of a hard material to prevent optic blasts, then if he needed to remove it, would he just need to take off his entire hood? Questions everywhere. This one loses points simply for being unrealistic to the universe, which is hard to achieve. Magneto has had a number of outfits over the year, and I have put this one in the middle because I can't decide if I hate it. In 2021, Marvel released a bunch of character designs for the Hellfire Gala. It was the Met Gala for mutants basically, so everyone is turning up in exaggerated versions of their usual outfits or something representing their powers. Some people hit it out of the park. Emma Frost, Colossus, Sunfire are some of my personal favorites. Magneto's is giving. We can't deny that he put his all into his outfit. He's like an Elton John steampunk Magneto. There are aspects I really like. His gold cane is his helmet, and the suit is fun. It has lots of intricate designs and a rose pinned to the collar. Most of my problem, my side eye, is directed at the top hat. I don't think I've seen someone wear a top hat well since like 1900 or a magician. Yeah, I just can't decide if he looks majestic or too over the top. Let me know what you think. Nightcrawler slays right now. He's got a good look going for him. His look in the 90s Excalibur era, not a fan favorite, and it's not hard to see why. Nightcrawler now is like this cool guy. Sure, can his red neck cape be drawn a little extreme? Yes, but he makes it look cool. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for his 90s choice of fashion. Lots of characters got bold redesigns in the 90s, some worked, some didn't. In Nightcrawler's case, they gave him a goatee and overall made him a pirate. He looks like a pirate. Give him the hat, that's a pirate. He has a little gold earring, that's not that bad. I feel like they could bring that back no problem. His belt is weird though. It looks like it might actually be undergarments. I don't know. The red V that we are used to seeing on the character, but made out of this like loose piece of fabric. It looks like he got into an accident in the sheets section of Bed Bath & Beyond. Generally, fans agree that this redesign was a miss and are glad he has a different fit now. Wolverine's debut costume, the one that was basically the yellow and blue standard but had little whiskers, that one surprisingly isn't the worst thing Wolverine has worn. Maybe the worst thing designed for him, but he has served worse. In X-Men 107, Wolverine is fighting the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard wears these outfits that are great for them, sure, but not so great for Wolverine. They are like these brown skin suits with a dark brown stripe up the middle and a belt made out of bones. Sounds like it should slay, right? The thing is, when Wolverine is drawn far away, it looks like he is wearing nothing but a thick ribbon. Physics, we don't know her. He's not, of course. The reason he had to wear the suit in the first place was because he got burned up in the fight and he needed something to wear that wasn't fabric shreds. An Imperial Guard was nearby and Wolverine took him out and wore his clothes. Professor X has sported some looks over the years. This one has got a touch of whimsy, a little bit of magic, and one man looking pretty in pink. Uncanny X-Men 153 gave us the gift of pink wizard Professor X. Unexpected turn for him, of course, but he didn't actually wear it. This issue of Uncanny X-Men featured the X-Men cleaning up after an attack, and Colossus's younger sister was scared to sleep because of the attack. So Kitty tells her a story to help her sleep. That story was Kitty's fairy tale. It featured Kitty and Colossus as pirates, Cyclops and Jean Grey as the prince and princess, Storm as the genie, Nightcrawler as a bamf, Wolverine as an unnamed meanie, and Professor X as the wizard. Professor X as the wizard was a moment. The comic was a little racially insensitive, but not the worst I've seen from Marvel, but also like not amazing. So Pink Professor is sitting on a magic carpet and he's got this hot pink robe covered in white stars and moons. He has a true wizard hat on his head with a little gem right in the middle and a very long mustache. Everyone across the board is sporting slightly goofy looks. This one was just the most shocking to me. So Rogue and the color green are best friends. She looks great in green, but once they made her green, like Shrek green, why? This was in Uncanny X-Men 190 and 191. This story was about that time that New York was transported back to the Middle Ages because a wizard couldn't get tickets to a Renaissance fair. I'm kidding. Kulan Gath is just weird. He made it so everyone in NYC acted like and believed they were in the Middle Ages and dressed like it was the Middle Ages, except Spider-Man. Not about him though. This is about what they did to Rogue. Redheads in green is a moment, you know, with the color wheel, backed science, and everything. So when Rogue wears green, she looks great. When she is green, I don't know. Shrek was not out when this comic was released, but Rogue is Shrek here. She doesn't look awful, but she's looked better. She also just wears a tunic and a long cape. She wasn't always green. In certain panels, she has her regular skin tone, so I'm not sure what's going on. It's kind of funny because at the start of the comic, there is a panel that showcases all the heroes affected by the spell. In it, you can see Storm drawn like a goddess, flattering angles overall, and then Rogue is beside her looking so angry and square. What did they do to my girl? Uncanny X-Men 149 and Kitty Pryde, match made not in heaven. It is sweet how the costume from this issue came to be. Kitty is young, she wants to express herself, right? So she decided that the X-Men costume given to her was positively antique. So she decided to make herself a new one. This comic came out in the 80s, so I think you can guess how this teenage girl designed an 80s superhero costume and how it turned out. Lots of colors that don't go together and some stars. She also added some roller rollerblades to the mix, a nod to Dazzler, who Kitty is a fan of. They are a fun touch. Now instead of the flare coming from her ability to walk through walls, she can rollerblade through them. She's got these purple, white, and blue high sock stocking things, and I think a gold base suit. On top of that, she's wearing green shorts, a purple X-Men belt, orange gloves, purple mask, and a red tank top with blue lightning strikes on it. The gloves also have blue stars on them. I was not a teen girl in the 80s personally, so I'm not sure if this was like the dream fit. If you were a teen girl in the 80s, please sound off in the comments. Let me know if you would wear this to the roller rink.
While Spider Armor MK1 might look a lot better today in its modern iteration, initially when it debuted in Web of Spider-Man issue number 100, it looked honestly pretty goofy. It's giving tinfoil vibes to me. Tinfoil armor, which might actually be what it's made out of, at least in part, as Spider-Man refers to it being made out of a material that is known as being pseudo-metallic, which sounds like it's not really made out of any true steel or like any other real metal. Pseudo means imitation, basically, something that's not genuine, and metallic just means resembling metal, so I'm not surprised this suit was initially shattered in its first incarnation. Rest in peace, pseudo-metallic aka tinfoil suit. Pretty sure it's tinfoil. Pretty sure. What is happening with some of these suits in Spider-Man 2? I really want to like the hair poking out here, and honestly I do love that Miles' hair is dyed red for this look, but at the same time, why does it look like the suit is just perfectly cut and molded still? Like, it looks like someone went in Photoshop, right? And they had the full mask, they had the full head. They literally removed the top of the mask, the top of his head. The lines are just too sharp, and the mask does not look like it is properly formed to his head. It literally looks like he's wearing Lego hair a little bit. But aside from the hair rant, which, let's be honest, that's most of my point here, and I'm gonna talk about it probably again, to be honest with you. I'm not sure how I feel about this look when it comes to just even the shoes. Why are the shoes always throwing me off with Miles' look? I mean, a lot of the times I get stuck on the shoes. This is Miles Morales' Red Spectre suit, by the way, from Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation, and I don't know how I feel about it, other than I simply don't like it. I want to like it, but I just can't. Just what is even going on in Spider-Man right now in the comics? What is happening? Someone help me. Part of me wants to read and like find out, and then the other part of me is honestly a little too scared to read and find out. I'm a little nervous. This new suit of Peter's though, an Amazing Spider-Man, which will make its first appearance in ASM issue number 53 this summer, or just before, presumably, based on the cover for issue number 53, and honestly there's a cover, I think it's for issue 52, it's like the costume is teased, but then issue 53 we already have the cover for, so I don't know. This costume though, it seems to give us a sense at least for some of the story behind it, and I'm not sure that I like it. The solicit for this issue also gives me more details that I'm not sure how I feel about. The solicit reads, Peter Parker is the Spider-Goblin. Peter Parker carries the weight of Norman Osborn's sins and takes to the skies as Spider-Goblin. How do I feel about this? How do you feel about this? Ugh, this one just feels kinda garish to me. Now I understand what it's trying to do, I kinda respect what it's trying to do, but like the suit that we just touched upon, this one just feels a bit too showy for my taste, I'm gonna be real. We're talking here about Peter Parker's smoke and mirrors suit. This suit design is of course based off of the famous Spider-Man villain Mysterio's look, but what works for Mysterio doesn't necessarily work for our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in terms of style, in my opinion. The glass smoky helmet really throws me off with this one too, as every time I look at it, it just makes me feel like super detached from the character. I keep forgetting that it's like an actual head. Keep being like, oh, why isn't Peter wearing it though? I mean, where is Spider-Man's face here also? Even with him being in it, how does he see? Style 1, in terms of color, being mainly white with sort of black and gold accents, just makes me straight up think of the White Ranger from Power Rangers. Now granted, I like Power Rangers, okay? But I don't need to be reminded of the Power Rangers when I'm playing a Spider-Man game. To me that feels kind of weird. I will say the problems this suit has are kind of the opposite of the next one on our list though, which is gonna go in a bad way in a totally different direction. This suit being inspired by the Miles Morales The End comic doesn't make it any better in my opinion. It works better in the comic in terms of what it represents, but on its own it isn't really cool enough to spark love for this look just deep within myself on style alone. The End comics are basically multiverse multiversal and hypothetical ending stories for our heroes if you've had not gotten into them before. Some of these stories are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are just like kinda meh. For me, Miles' The End was just kinda meh. This look also evokes a similar vibe for me. It's kinda meh. In the comic, at least we get to see an older Miles don the suit, but even then, it's just a pretty basic look. Camo pants over Miles' black and red spider suit with black and red matching boots and a hooded leather jacket. I just wish there was a bit more to it, as it feels like a little too casual for my tastes. But I don't know, maybe when you get older, you're like, time to get more casual in my superhero attire. Simply put, there are too many lines for me when it comes to this suit and its look. It's just a lot of a lot. We're talking here about the Secret War Spider-Man suit that appears in the Spider-Man 2 PlayStation game. Now, I do like the colors, the blue and black anyways, but I'm not sure how I feel about those red lines though even, like, I don't know. One of the few suits from Miles where everyone else's issues with it is not my issue with it. When it comes to the evolved suit from Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation, a lot of people out there take issue with the branded Adidas sneakers. Now, a lot of people were not happy with these, feeling that Miles' appearance and sweet kicks in the game were made to target a teenage audience, and that offended people. For some reason. Something many fans felt didn't really exist for these games, I guess. They were like, there is no teen audience, how dare they? And they thought therefore it was silly. Although, to be honest, I know people of all ages who love Spider-Man. I think that his shoe choice is actually less about targeting teens, in my opinion, and it's just more about reflecting kind of like Miles' style. And while normally I'm not a fan of a superhero sneaker look, even with Miles, I think in this case, Miles actually pulls it off with this suit. Now, my issue here though is, once again, the hair poking out of the top. Like I said, I don't mind the hair itself. I actually think that's a cool style choice, but just the way it looks, like there's something off about the way they did it. It looks like the top of the mask was clean cut away and is like stiff. Or like Miles' head is weirdly blocky. If it's a spandex style mask, shouldn't the part where it's open like squeeze tightly to the top of Miles' head and then the hair comes out of that? It feels like it should just be a little bit more rounded there, and yet it's just like weirdly stiff and straight at the part where the mask meets the hair. I don't like that. I've talked about this next look before on the channel, and of course, as it was a look created to coincide with and celebrate Miles' 10th anniversary as a character, it appears also in the Spider-Man 2 PlayStation game. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'm not a big fan of this look. Chiefly, I think it's like the super tight fitting leggings with just the big oversized hoodie. It's a vibe, but it's just not one that I'm feeling for Miles. Maybe on another character I might like this better, but it just feels like it doesn't really fit here. Aside from that, I'm also just not a big fan of the chonky kind of sneakers and like the long neck of the hoodie, which zips up to cover the lower half of Miles's already masked face. I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. Why are team-up comics always the ones with weird outfits for Spider-Man? It's like he teams up and he needs to get a suit to match that comic, to match that team-up. In this case, actually, that is exactly what seems to be happening with Spider-Man's cyborg suit, which first appeared in Spider-Man issue number 21. You might even be able to guess which Marvel character he is teaming up with in this issue just by looking at his outfit. Now, if you guessed Deathlock, ding ding ding, you would be right. Don't worry though, this cyborg look is just in fact a modified version of Spider-Man's suit. He doesn't really get a cybernetic arm to replace his human one. Instead, this is a special metal cast which allows him to maintain the functions of his arm while it heals at an accelerated rate. Apparently, according to the issue. The Electro-proof suit is an insulated suit that Spider-Man wears in issue number 425 of Amazing Spider-Man, and it is a wild one. It is a wild suit, and it is also a wild issue if you haven't read it. Now, this was at a time where Electro had beefed himself up in terms of his powers, essentially becoming what he'd describe as an electric god. This is also when Electro had pierced ears, by the way. What a great look. Well, the suit that Peter wears here doesn't look all that great. I am glad that it led me to this issue, as I kind of love how just like super 90s this issue is. It led me to a time that I didn't know I needed in my life right now, a time when Spider-Man and X-Man Nate Gray were besties just teaming up in New York, and I'm kind of here for it. In this issue, Spider-Man even kind of saves Nate, although Nate pays him back by saving Spider-Man later on, so don't worry about that. But Nate in his fight against Electro is surprisingly not doing so hot. Yeah, at one point he almost gets like completely KO'd by Electro. It's bizarre. That's just how crazy Electro is in this issue. To help combat the sheer power of his electric touch, Spider-Man gets himself an insulated suit to go over his standard suit, which basically looks like it was made out of patio chair cushions and rubber tubing to me. Which, in Peter's defense here, could make good last minute insulation materials, to be honest. I don't know. Science. Maybe. Science?
Number 10. Thor from the 90s. Around the time of the Avengers crossover event The Crossing, pretty much all of the Avengers got new costumes, and even though Thor was not directly tied into the actual event, he absolutely did too. All the costumes here were very over the top, and that was definitely the case with Thor. With endless belts, pouches, oversized shoulder pads complete with a giant metal codpiece, plus long chains out of nowhere for his hammer, he looks a lot like many other characters from the 90s, but he doesn't particularly look like Thor outside of Mjolnir. But at the same time, I actually kinda like it. I think if this costume had been worn by a wholly different character, it may have been a bit more acceptable, but I do agree without the hammer you may not recognize this as Thor. The funny thing is, Thor didn't even wear this costume really. Despite being shown in promotional materials as his new look, he didn't actually wear the costume, instead running around shirtless for most of the time that he was supposed to be wearing this new outfit. When he returned after temporarily passing away with the rest of his teammates during Onslaught, he was back in his traditional costume.
Number 9. Spy D. Okay, so this is actually not the name of this look for Miles, nor is it actually a name that we use for this character today, but for a while, Marvel actually considered changing a superhero name from just Spider-Man to Spy D. I'm not joking, guys, this is a real thing. And equally bizarre, I think, is this costume change that we saw Miles get a few years back. After his black and red spider suit was destroyed, one of Miles' friends in the comics, a young sort of up-and-coming clothing designer, decided to make him a replacement suit. I mean, at least it has a reason for existing, and it does actually look really comfy. I personally would wear this, but you know, maybe not to fight crime in.
Number 8. Dark Claw. I do not believe that it is all wrong to call the DC Marvel amalgam character Dark Claw just a little bit bizarre. This character is a beloved mix of DC Comics' Batman, the Dark Knight, and Cape Crusader, mixed with Marvel's resident angry Canadian, Wolverine. It was not only an incredibly smart move by both companies to try this, but it's just an insanely awesome build for a comic book character. It's shocking that it wasn't done before or expanded upon since. Either way, it happened when it happened, and the outfit worn by Logan Wayne is all kinds of ridiculous. It's got far too many large pointy parts, like mixing the cowl of Batman with the cowl of Wolverine to give us a cowl that looks like it would be problematic to wear at best. The belt looks like it would be the absolute worst, and the cape is just a tiny bit humongous, complete with pointy shoulders that I feel would also get in the way of this clawed martial artist's daily operations. But I will absolutely never pretend that this isn't the most awesome thing I have ever seen in a very long time.
Number 7. Power Girl. A lot of people give Power Girl a hard time for having her cut out in her costume. People for years have seen this as an objectification of the character, and while this might have been true, actually initially, Power Girl at least has been given the opportunity to own this part of her costume. At one point, they even give an explanation in the comics for why the cutout exists, other than the initial real-world reason of just really objectifying her, which co-creator Wally Wood even admitted to, saying that he actually drew her bust larger and larger intentionally until DC had to ask him to stop. In JSA Classified issue number 2, Power Girl explains that the window represents, in a way, her lack of identity or motivation she feels she has as a hero. She wanted a symbol like Superman's at that spot in her costume, but wanted to find her own symbol to represent who she was. She didn't want to copy others related to her by giving herself the same S that both Supergirl and Superman wear, but at the same time she struggled to figure out what that symbol should be for herself, what it and what she wanted to represent. And she even talks about how the hole in the costume kind of is like representing a hole inside herself, if that makes sense. Now, while some have made fun of this explanation, saying she could have just covered up and left a blank white spot on her outfit where her chest is, I actually kind of like it for Power Girl, who is a character that has often struggled with living in the shadow of other super family members' identities.
Number 6. Azrael Batsuit. When Azrael took over as Batman in the 1990s following the Nightfall story and Batman having his back cracked in half by the villain Bane, the idea by Batman editor Denny O'Neil was to show just how the real Batman was so much better than some quote extreme hero, which was what people in the 90s seemed to be completely obsessed with. All this to say that Azrael's Batman was intentionally over the top to prove this point. Starting as just another Batman suit, he still upped the ante by giving the gauntlets claws. very edgy, literally. But as he went on as Batman, he got more and more extreme, and so did his costume. With a blue, black, and gold color scheme, the suit became more armor-like, loaded up with pouches, huge bladed gauntlets, a blue bat helmet with red glowing eyes. The cape gained massive pointed shoulders. Time kept going on, and so did Azrael's grip on reality, until he replaced the blue of his suit with red, added multiple spikes onto his cape's shoulder area, and made his cape appear more wing-like with multiple different strands of fabric. The only problem with all of this is, I think it actually looks really freaking cool. Maybe I'm crazy, but it's just super awesome. When DC brought him back as Batman for Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall story, they made a more subtle change to his look that felt more in line with the character's own history and affiliations, and every single one of the suits he has worn as Batman, to me, not only look really cool, but they also are really good storytelling devices.
Number 5. Vampirella. When it comes to Vampy, there are many people who take issue with her outfit. And while for someone like Red Sonja, who literally is a barbarian running around in a chainmail bikini, I get the complaints regarding the skimpy outfit in terms of practicality, I think for someone like Vampirella, her look actually does make sense, and even actually works to her benefit. Vampy is a vampire who, depending on the origin you prefer, either came from a planet of space vampires or came from basically hell, being the daughter of the biblical Lilith. Vampires thematically tend to be used to explore the themes of promiscuity, repression of physical desires, and empowerment in regards to one's body, the use, control, and manipulation of it. So as a vampire alone, I actually think this outfit really works. But then you also consider that this costume was designed in the late 60s by a woman who was also part of the underground comics movement, Trina Robbins. Robbins throughout her career has been involved in feminist writings and art, and has also promoted the idea of women reading comics and getting involved in the comic book industry. As such, I've always seen Vampy's initial costume as one that represents women owning and loving their bodies and the deadly allure of the vampire.
Number 4. War Machine: The Crossing. War Machine is plagued by an issue that not a lot of other comic book characters have to deal with, that being that his character was a spin-off of a much more popular hero, Iron Man. War Machine's armor was a more obviously combat-inclined Tony Stark designed version of Iron Man's armor, and during the 90s and his solo series, Marvel wanted to distance the character from Iron Man. Stark just happened to be the villain of the Avengers The Crossing event that we just talked about with Thor, and because of that, Rhodey could not get another suit of armor from him after losing his original armor. So, instead, he was chosen by a race of warrior aliens known as the Eidolon, I think is how you pronounce it, to wear a special armor called Warwear, and funnily enough, it was because of his connection to Stark. This armor was intentionally designed to look very alien, and it succeeded in that. It was really weird looking, like just look at it. And yet, here I am to say, while it was super strange, it is also kind of really cool, and it definitely pushes the character's look way off from Tony Stark and his armors. The colors, the build of it, its capabilities, the fact that it looks almost organic, how the helmet only covered half of his head, it's all so different from Stark and is incredibly unique in general. Fortunately, or fortunately depending on your preference, Rhodey gave up the Warwear by sacrificing it to erase all information about the Iron Man technology from Stark Enterprises servers.
Number 3. Black Bolt. Oh my goodness, I love Black Bolt, but I cannot get over the tuning fork on his head. Overall, I would say his costume is pretty cool and sleek, although it kinda looks like it would be challenging to get into, honestly. Is Black Bolt bald, by the way? I don't think he is. If he's not, he must have to smooth his hair down every morning and then like put a cap on before he pulls the suit on over his head. I'm not sure what exact textile his suit is made out of, but I can't imagine covering your hair in this way every day would be good for it or comfortable. People say wearing hats constantly is actually not good for your hair, so I can imagine a suit with an attached head cap, headpiece, head mask would be even worse. However, when it comes to Black Bolt, his little glider wings and his tuning fork actually do make some sense in terms of his powers and his character. His tuning fork actually helps him to channel his powers, giving him greater control, and his little glider wings attached to his arms would actually make it easier for him to move around when he's flying. Because yeah, Black Bolt can actually use his speech-centered electron manipulation powers to also fly. So yeah.
Number 2. Electric Blue. In 1996, Superman had absorbed a massive amount of energy and attack from an enemy. He survived the ordeal, but strangely enough, the robots at the Fortress of Solitude no longer recognized his DNA as Kryptonian. Superman then also temporarily lost his superpowers as part of a crossover called Final Night, where the Earth's sun was extinguished. Ultimately, the sun was reignited, and when he went to charge up and get his powers back, his powers began changing. He became much faster. His invulnerability now became intangibility, his X-ray vision displayed the electromagnetic spectrum, his super strength became him magnetically lifting things, and he gained the power to emit electricity. The downside was that he ended up becoming supercharged with solar energy to the point where his body could no longer process it in a way it used to, and he basically imploded into a mass of energy. Luckily though, he was saved by wearing an energy containment suit created by Emil Hamilton and Lex Luthor. He was now able to control his vastly different powers, but he required the suit to stay intact. The suit itself is not bad at all. I actually really like the look of this super suit. He looked awesome. The problem is, this is Superman. Changing him in such an absolutely drastic manner did not go over well with fans, and eventually those powers went away and he went back to the status quo as all comic characters do. But he still looked pretty cool. Just saying.
Number 1. Peacemaker. Probably the weirdest and wildest costume out there is Peacemaker's. The live-action Peacemaker series doesn't even hesitate to make fun of the look as early as the first episode. But while Peacemaker's costume may seem ridiculous, and don't get me wrong, I know it is, there's no argument there, it is also extremely iconic and memorable. The white pants, the weird toilet seat shaped helmet. In the comics, Chris's helmet is also more than just a stylish accessory. It is also a device that he uses to talk to, well, ghosts. The ghosts of those that he's killed and the ghost of his father. However, it's also been implied that this is less the helmet's doing and more Chris's mind and PTSD that are making him think he's talking to ghosts. Still, I feel like for who Peacemaker is, this suit, while silly, actually works really well for the character, and I'm also really glad that they pretty much adapted it one for live action. It's great.
We're starting off simple. Wolverine's blue and yellow suit is iconic. I cannot find fault in that. I am gonna complain about yellow later on, but not here. Wolverine as a character is big and aggressive, so yellow works. He's not exactly one for trying to hide in a fight. When he debuted in Incredible Hulk 180, the only non-threatening thing about him were the whiskers. Cat-looking whiskers. Even though they were such a small part of the look, they did wonders for making him look less menacing. Thankfully, literally the next time we see Wolverine in Giant Size X-Men 1, his costume is basically the same, just no whiskers. There is an in-canon reasoning. There's this whole thing where a villain, Mesmeros, takes over Beast's mind and makes him wear a costume made from different Halloween costumes. In the fight to defeat Mesmero, Wolverine's original mask gets torn up, but he can't go face out, so he instead takes the mask Beast had been using, and must have really liked it, because it's been the look ever since. From an out-of-universe perspective, the change may have been made for a variety of reasons. The original mask showed Wolverine's eyes, whereas the new one didn't, allowing for more mystery, which works well with the character. But really, the illustrator of Giant Size X-Men thought Wolverine's original mask looked too similar to Batman, so when Gil Kane drew Wolverine's mask incorrectly on the cover, he liked the change and put it in the pages too. Black Widow's current costume works so well for the character, it's hard to imagine she ever had to fight in anything else. She did, and they were not good. Not even like design-wise, sometimes they were just impractical. The first few Tales of Suspense comics she's in, she's wearing wiggle dresses. I've tried moving in a vintage wiggle dress, just going up the stairs is mission impossible. So she not only needed a redesign to give her a better look, but she also needed one so she could actually fight properly. In Tales of Suspense 64, she does a more practical fighting fit, but it's also not great in my opinion. It's a fully blue suit with a really short cape and fishnet tights. She was basically wearing a Spider-Man suit, it was very similar. The boots let her stick to the ceiling, and she had a bracelet that would shoot a nylon line so she could swing around. In the 1970s, that is when the iconic Black Widow outfit we know today came into the picture, thanks to artist John Romita Sr. I personally think the all-black suit works better for her, it makes it easy to sneak around, and fits the image of a Black Widow better than blue. I love Iron Man, so this does hurt a little bit, but we do have to acknowledge that the first ever Iron Man suit wasn't the prettiest. I know that it was built in a cave with a box of scraps, but I think we are all glad that Tony improved on the design when he escaped said cave. Even then, the first official Iron Man suit was pretty clunky and didn't move super well. We didn't even get the iconic red and gold until a few designs later. The first redesign was all gold because, according to Tony's love interest Marion, the gray is awful and dull, whereas gold would make him seem more like a knight in shining armor. Tony also changed it because the gray apparently is frightening to everyone, friend or foe, but gold will be frightening to just foes. I love the logic of the 60s. Tales of Suspense 48 is when the Iron Man that is popular today makes his first appearance. The gold suit was way too heavy, so Tony redesigned it to be made of lighter material so he could fight better. And the red? Well, in the 48 comic, he is fighting Mr. Doll. Mr. Doll has a doll that he makes look like his opponents. When he hurts the doll, he hurts them. Iron Man adding the red was supposed to prevent that. I love the current Nightwing suit. I think it looks great, it's simple, just black with a blue bat across the front. It's just really nice. The original is iconic though. Terrible but iconic. Looking camp right in the eye, you can tell that it was designed in the 80s. The pants aren't that bad, they're just pants. It's the top. It looks like something Elvis would have worn during his Vegas residency or like an 80s rock star. Not saying that's a bad thing, I just can't imagine having to fight crime in a collar as high as my cheekbones. That has to be blocking his peripheral vision and ability to turn his head. It also has a V-neck that looks great but exposes his chest a bit, and that's where your heart is. You should probably protect that king. The mask is fine, that hasn't changed from the first fit to now. While Nightwing does serve in his original fit, the redesign has become his most iconic look, and I think he serves fighting crime better in that one. Featured beside the first Nightwing fit, like the next panel over, is the original Jericho suit. Jericho is a villain now, but that wasn't always the case. When we first met his super persona in Tales of Teen Titans 44, actually first appeared in 42 but saw the super suit in 44. Point is, he was on the good side. It was later that he switched sides. His suit looks like an 80s colorful Thor. He's got a pink, I'm assuming armored vest chest piece. The belt is massive. It looks like he has a cape, but it's actually a blue hood. At this rate, the Teen Titans will soon be touring the US as the hottest 80s rock stars. I think my biggest issue with the original suit is that it has a very loose white turtleneck. The extra droopy arms are bound to get caught on something. His costume in the Rebirth era kept the white, but made it more form-fitting and suitable for crime fighting, in my opinion. The cyborg we are used to seeing now is more machine than man, very modest. He didn't start that way. He first appeared in DC Comics Presents 26, and he is basically wearing a cyborg swimsuit and thigh-high boots. Again, with the super V-neck, please protect your heart, even if it is just nuts and bolts. He has the half-cyborg face that carries on throughout his redesigns, and he is silver. That doesn't change either. The suit is just so 80s and impractical, I kinda love it. Later depictions of Cyborg fill in the gaps of his original suit and add more crime-fighting machinery. Out of the 3 Teen Titans here, his suit is probably the most similar to what he would later become. The X-Men Beast is blue. He's been blue for a long time, but not forever. He actually started out as a human-looking character that just had really big hands and feet. I suppose that it would have made it easier for him to exist in the human world when he didn't have his signature blue fur, but that also meant that when he dressed as an X-Men, he had no gloves or shoes. Literally, toes out. And I'm sorry, but it looked a little silly. And it wasn't really an iconic look, he's just a guy with big hands. When he takes an experimental chemical that turns him into a furry monster, that's iconic, that's original. And then turning blue, now that's a recognizable hero. I'm not sure if this 100% counts, but I'm gonna do it anyways. When you think of the Flash, probably most people think of Barry Allen and his iconic red suit. Well, Barry was not the first Flash. The first guy to take up the name was Jay Garrick. His suit does have the iconic lightning bolt on a red background, but that's where the similarities end. His pants are blue, but the worst part of the getup is the helmet. The character is based on the god Mercury, who wears something super similar. I wasn't around in the 1940s, so I'm not sure how I would have felt seeing it then, but I know how I feel now. It's such an interesting choice, and it doesn't have a chin strap. Wouldn't it fly off? That's a safety hazard. This man runs faster than the speed of light. Getting hit with his flying helmet would take you out for sure. It also just looks a little silly. I think it was a cool idea to base him off Mercury though. I will say I quite like the Barry Allen Flash fit. No possible projectiles from that one, and to me, I just find the solid red to be more cohesive and visually appealing. Daredevil now. Amazing outfit. The original though, just doesn't make sense. Daredevil can't see, but any villain can see him coming from a mile away. He looks like a hazard sign. The all red is definitely more menacing, practical, and stylish. The reason he was bright yellow and red at first is because that was his dad's boxing robe colors, so the suit was a tribute. It's really sweet, but also really visible. In Daredevil issue 1, the suit is hand-stitched by Matt out of old shirts and presumably the robe. I think he knows he's using yellow because he says that each colored fabric has a different feel to him. Matt does make a point of noting when the costume is done that Daredevil will be recognized anywhere. Bright yellow can achieve that, so while he's establishing himself in the super scene, the choice is a good one. This outfit does not last long. In issue 7, it's changed to the full red fit we usually see Daredevil wear. The new red suit design is modeled after the way that Christian Devil is often depicted, which makes sense to me. The design change was addressed later on in a Level with Daredevil section. Turns out, when Wally Wood became the new illustrator, he just didn't like the Daredevil costume and decided to change it. We just talked about Arabian Night a few videos ago, and he fits in here too. Maybe not for the same reasons. See, he desperately needed a redesign because his original concept was a bit racially insensitive. Editor Andy Schmidt is quoted saying the first version of Arabian Night was just a visual stereotype with no real character behind him. The original had a special magic carpet that would only respond to his mental commands, and his weapon was a scimitar. He also had a belt sash that again would only obey his mental commands, so it could be used as binding or a weapon. In the new version, the magic carpet got unraveled and made into a suit for Arabian Night that still gives him all the same powers the carpet had had. The new guy was also given more of a backstory and was designed to be less of an insulting stereotype as described by Schmidt.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Bullseye. Daredevil. Wow, he's the coolest guy I've ever seen at a bar, hands down. So Bullseye was introduced to readers back in Daredevil 131. Now, I know he doesn't look the coolest here either, but that's who the character is, okay? Make your movie universe work for that character or just don't use the character yet. That's it. Like, you can't have Daredevil looking like this, and then when it comes to Bullseye, you have him looking like this. You can't have cool guy Colin Farrell and also leather Daredevil. It's just like, pick a lane. It looks like he's the villain of a 90s TV show, honestly. He doesn't look like the iconic evil assassin at all in this entire movie. Plus, Colin Farrell's performance is just... Now, the Batman universe did Ben Affleck a little bit better, and now we can also look forward to Colin Farrell being in the Penguin in the new Batman, so it's good. It's like you start with Marvel, move to DC, or you start to DC, and then you move to Marvel. Proper transitions. And before we head over to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really means a lot for us at the channel, and it also helps us out as well too. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting. Now back to this list. Number 9, Silver Samurai. The Wolverine. Alrighty, we got a cinematic masterpiece coming from Fox, because they just pump out the best superhero movies ever. The Silver Samurai in this movie has no mutant abilities. It's rather just an advanced tech suit. It was made up of adamantium from the orders of Ikiro Yoshida, and it was meant to prolong his life until he got Logan's healing factor. And it also looks like a Decepticon. Although it's based off of the original armor of the Silver Samurai, it just didn't work out. It was too much CGI, took you out of the movie, felt like you were watching Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. It was just a mess. But while this Wolverine movie may be at the bottom of the list for many, I don't feel too bad for adding it in here because eventually we got around to James Mangold's Logan, which was a perfect send-off for the character. So far, there's only a couple of Fox characters that have been redeemed. Wolverine and some other mutant that I'm going to mention definitely later on in this list. Number 8, Vision. Avengers Age of Ultron. So with WandaVision episodes dropping weekly, we're getting to see Marvel have another crack at suiting up their power couple. We've seen a sneak peek now for their original comic book look that's going to come up in a future episode. Okay, cool, that's going to be amazing. So now it's only fair to revisit Marvel's first attempt at Vision. Age of Ultron was released in 2015 and comic book fans were delighted to see the creation of Vision in this movie. But unfortunately, it looked like another CGI android and not anything close to what made him pop and unique in the comics. So while some characters like Hawkeye have to look more military based because that's part of this arc for this universe that they're building all these stories in, he's more of a military character. It would make sense that he doesn't jump right into the purple onesie off the bat. But Vision could have looked anyway. He didn't have to be as grounded and realistic as Hawkeye did in the story. They could have had way more fun with him, which is something WandaVision is finally doing now. And even the solo Hawkeye show that's coming to Disney Plus is kind of leaning into more fun costume-wise. So we can look forward to seeing that in the future. See, things get better for Marvel. They start off a little bit choppy and then they're like, oh, let's throw in some purple. Let's throw in some green. Number 7, The Rhino. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, the Spider-Man almost trilogy with Andrew Garfield. Here we go. So we got to see the introduction to Rhino, played by Paul Giamatti, which is a wild sentence to say out loud. So the popular villain made his debut in Amazing Spider-Man issue 41 back in 1966. And fans were pumped to see this movie possibly lead us to a Sinister Six movie. And it was coming. So this strange gentleman throughout the movie who is assembling this sinister crew asked Alexei to pilot this exosuit. Now at the beginning of this movie, we had seen him trying to hijack an Oscorp van containing vials of plutonium. Now, of course, this was Spidey's cool first fight scene of the movie, so he took him down with ease, throwing in left hooks and quips, eventually leaving him literally standing there with his pants down. And then at the end of this film, because, you know, he's only in the opening scene and the ending scene forever, that's all the Rhino we have now until they redo him again, but they're not going to bring him back for sure. This is a hard character to do, and it didn't really work out in this movie in any way. Yeah, like imagine if you joined Jamie Foxx's Electro coming into the MCU in the next Spider-Man movie. Like if he appeared there, he'd get his ass kicked. Like Mark 1 could take this guy. Now I understand you need to make it again more realistic for a live action movie, but this just wasn't it. Number 6, Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse. He made his first full comic book appearance in X-Factor issue 5. He's the big, brooding villain of the Marvel Universe, or one of them at least. And after the success of X-Men Days of Future Past, this movie was hyped up. The first mutant, near omnipotent superpowers, this guy is the big bad we've been waiting for in the X-Men universe. And the results were boring dialogue. The costume ended up looking like the sticky dude from Power Rangers movie. Ivan Ooze. Yeah, Ivan Ooze was the villain. Hi, can I get 4 tickets to X-Men Ivan Ooze? Thanks, debit. To be honest, I'd rather just watch Oscar Isaac act as a person, because it's usually pretty good. Ex Machina was an amazing performance. This movie just felt like a superhero movie with a budget every time I looked at him. And also, the guy's barely in the movie. Like, for the main villain, for Apocalypse in a live-action X-Men film, we got to see him for less than 20 minutes in total. Number 5, The Thing. Fantastic Four. 2015, very important number. The Fantastic Four movies are on here more than once and for good reason. Okay, so we head over now to the reboot that didn't do well at all. It was directed by Josh Trank, released in 2015, and is currently sitting at a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Also, the other Fantastic Four movies before this reboot didn't get the best of reviews. I mean, sure, they were made long before the MCU was established, so there's not much to compare, but they were fun at the time. I mean, I remember having a good time in theaters. I don't remember having a bad time in theaters like I did with this Fantastic Four movie. But with John Watts attached to take a swing at the franchise yet again, we have a little bit of hope. He brought Spider-Man back to life and did such a good job. So as soon as he announced that he was doing Fantastic Four, I think we're good. I think we're finally past the uglies and now we're gonna get into the goods. But let's look now at one of the many things that made this movie bomb. And for me, it was character design. It didn't work. It didn't pull me in at all. I didn't care about any of these characters. I didn't care about the Fantastic Four. That's insane. Like The Thing, he's a super rock monster with a literal heart of gold. His first appearance is fun. He's a fun major character. Keyword here is fun. In 2011, The Thing ranked 18th in the top 100 comic book heroes, and we still haven't really seen any movie do him justice properly. For starters, at least the version that Michael Chiklis played had an actual actor under the suit. We had an actual human to relate to in some way or another. Number 4, Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four 2015. And now we got number 4, same movie. Let's do it. While we're at it, I gotta bring up Doctor Doom from the same movie. Perhaps even worse than how bad The Thing looked, we have our main villain. Also, one of the biggest Marvel villains ever of all time. Victor Von Doom was played by Toby Kebbell, who I'm a big fan of. His motion capture work for the Planet of the Apes movies were amazing. He's a fantastic actor. So dare I say, I was looking forward to seeing this movie in theaters. In the early 2000s franchise, we almost got him. We almost got Doctor Doom. We kind of got a comic book look and feel. A little bit. But even so, this was a watered down version of the character as a whole. Like, he's not a king yet. And the reboot back in 2015, when the first look of Doctor Doom was leaked, we couldn't even believe it. We thought it was fake. We were confused and kind of worried, but then, you know, maybe a little CGI will kind of clean him up a bit, maybe some post-production. Maybe we'll have a good Doctor Doom, right? Right? We'll get him next time, boys. Number 3, Venom, Spider-Man 3. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies have a special place in my soul, in my heart. They're a big part of my childhood. I remember seeing Spider-Man 2 in theaters, and I remember having the best time. It rocked my world. And then the third one came out. So we got to see Venom come to life in the form of Topher Grace. This movie also just had a villain problem to begin with, not necessarily just Venom. We got a new Goblin, Harry Osborn, Flint Marko as the Sandman, and Eddie Brock as Venom. On paper, this sounds like a great Spider-Man sequel. Sounds like a lot of fun, but it wasn't. Why is that? Well, part of the problem was that the studio was pushing director Sam Raimi to include Venom in the plot, when even he didn't want to. He wanted to complete Harry's arc, boom, which he did, and he wanted to have a new wild villain that makes a blockbuster pop like Sandman, and then he originally wanted to have the Vulture in there as well as a third villain. He said Venom's lack of humanity wouldn't work with the existing story and universe. Yeah, absolutely. Venom looks bad in this movie. He just looks like Topher Grace in a suit with messed up teeth. It doesn't feel remotely close to being a powerful symbiote, and also because Raimi had to throw Venom in the plot, we also had to see a new look for Spider-Man. which was the black suit, which was cool. The black suit's a nice little nod to the old comics. It's cool, it makes him stronger. He likes the suit, it feels good on him. Awesome, we love to see it. But that meant we also got to see a new Peter Parker as well, which we didn't want to see. So including Venom was a fail for a good amount of reasons in this movie, not just the look.
I like being bad. It makes me happy.
Number 2, Galactus. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Okay, everybody heads up. We have a giant menacing space cloud coming in, and it's gonna kill all of us, so hit the deck. Galactus made his first comic book appearance in Fantastic Four issue 48 back in the 60s. He's referred to in this issue as the ultimate danger, and his looks match the description. He's the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse, and he was also the bad guy slash bad cloud slash thing that was coming in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. We're used to seeing this guy as a giant, powerful cosmic being, but his big reveal in this movie was not there at all. All we got was a little sneak peek at his silhouette. But why did this happen? Why did they choose to do a giant Nimbus cloud instead of a villain? Let me explain. So 20th Century Fox, their rationale for having the character as a cloud was apparently to keep him discreet, because they had original plans for him, and that was in a Silver Surfer spin-off. So they wanted that to be a tease and then furthermore explore his true look and story in the movie. So they wanted to kind of tease him first and then bring him in to the actual Silver Surfer spin-off, which would have been great, but we never got that. And finally, number 1, Deadpool. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Okay, possibly the worst cinematic debut of Wade Wilson. And we got 2 looks in that movie that nobody wanted. 2 for the price of 1. We got this one. And we also got this one.
Wait, is that you? Stryker finally figured out how to shut you up.
Both were not received well. Now we're finally back on track with Wade Wilson. Just like Logan, we got that R-rated comic book character we should have always gotten. The merc with the mouth, and your plan was to sew his mouth shut. Okay, great plan. So he went from holding katanas wearing a red and black outfit to having blades in his arm while being naked. And what didn't help was the fight scene that followed this horrible reintroduction. Thank God they're trying again with these characters, but I mean, how many tickets do we have to buy to see your failed attempts?
Number 10, Jack of Hearts. Jack of Hearts, whose name is actually Jonathan Hart, so a John instead of a Jack in his everyday life, is an underrated hero really, though he could do with a wardrobe update. His name makes him sound like he belongs in a Las Vegas casino, while his powers have nothing to do with card tricks. He got his powers from a fuel created by his father called Zero Fluid. He was covered in it as a result of a scuffle between him and an evil corporation who wanted to steal his father's scientific discovery. This resulted in him being granted powers including zero energy blast, superhuman strength, durability, and flight. But regardless of how cool he is alone, his costume makes him look like he would fit in more in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland than the pages of a comic book. He looks like one of the Queen of Hearts goons. With his half-painted face and his card-inspired tunic, his outfit from the 70s is in need of an update. I would love to see his outfit reflect just how cool of a hero he is. Number 9, Black Bolt and Lockjaw. The presence of Black Bolt, Inhuman Leader, and King and his dog Lockjaw might shock you for appearing on this list. Why did I add him here? Okay, let's just do a pan up from the bottom of his costume. So everything is good so far. Yep, standard spandex outfit here, cool pattern on the suit, and then wait for it, there. What is that on his mask? That is a tuning fork. It is true that Black Bolt sometimes uses his tuning fork in the comics to emit energy or channel his powers, but he also seems to use his powers just fine without the fork. It isn't a part of his body after all, it's just a part of his costume. Also, Lockjaw also has a tuning fork on his head, which to be fair looks as adorable as it does ridiculous. So you might think, but wait, what does Lockjaw use his tuning fork for? He doesn't have the electron harnessing speech center that Black Bolt possesses, right? You're right. Lockjaw is primarily known for his teleportation powers. The tuning fork for him can be used to channel and focus these powers. For someone who is using their speech, I could kinda see that this tuning fork might make sense, but for Lockjaw's powers, it also helps? Wait, WTF? Is this an Inhuman thing? Cause if so, why isn't everyone wearing a tuning fork on their head? Where's Medusa's tuning fork? Number 8. Captain Ultra. Captain Ultra doesn't just suffer from sometimes being an annoying character who admittedly even other supers would like some distance from, he also suffers from a case of a bad costume. Poor guy. His costume is problematic for the reason that it just has like too much going on. We are first introduced to Captain Ultra in the Fantastic Four Volume 1 issue 177. Another honorable mention from that issue is wannabe supervillain character Osprey, who wears wings despite not having any flight powers. Or any powers at all, sadly. Back to Captain Ultra. From his debut to his short time in the Defender series, his costume in the 60s and 70s always had just too much going on. Green helmet, blue cape, orange pants, red and yellow vest, blue underwear over the top of it all. All the iconic 70s colors rolled into one heinous outfit. Ugh. Number 7. Invisible Woman. After choosing to merge with Malice's persona to prevent Malice from taking control over her own body, Sue Storm underwent a radical change in the comics. While I kind of enjoyed the verve, sassiness, and occasional short temper she exhibited, including a scene in the comics where she turns residents of the tower's clothes invisible, using her powers in an attempt to cause them to stop chastising her and criticizing her younger brother Johnny Storm, which was pretty comical. A change that also came about from her transformation was one that was pretty ridiculous. Her ditching her old uniform and creating a new one with a cutout 4 in its chest to show off cleavage, and a ridiculous tummy window. This leotard is certainly an outfit, but one that seems a little risky. I mean, I know she's the Invisible Woman, but even when invisible, exposing your stomach to an enemy just seems like a bad call. Number 6. Hercules. Obviously Hercules is from an ancient era, and as a result, his looks can be considered dated to some, or I really think of them more as classic looks, and I find them more timeless myself. Except for during the Crossing event. Get ready to open up the Pandora's box that is time in Marvel comic history, cause there are a lot of awful outfits that came out of here. This Hercules costume involved a tank top with the Avengers A on it, some brown pants, and a belt. With his tank top tucked in and belted, I mean, just imagine that look in the real world, like outside of the comics, and it's utterly ridiculous. Not to mention they had Hercules shave for this outfit. This modern take on Hercules in the world of the 90s was just a travesty to his character, who is known for his iconic gladiator-inspired looks. I also have to give an honorable mention to the time Hercules' costume was just his birthday suit. Yep, it was super short-lived, and to call it a costume per se might be a stretch, but he was sort of training others using a Greek-inspired athletics competition while he was wearing it, or wearing nothing. Even offering to wrestle other heroes while in the buff. Ugh. Number 5. War Machine. We are staying put in the Crossing event for this one as well. If you are unfamiliar with this event in Marvel history, it involved a storyline where our superheroes went up against Iron Man. For a hero who is so celebrated, Tony Stark certainly does get battled by his fellow heroes more than you'd think. In this story, Tony is revealed to have been working for Kang for years, which results in the heroes having to team up to stop him. The end result is an older Tony Stark being converted back to good and sacrificing himself so that younger Tony from his past, who is also fighting him, can take over as the Tony of the present. Yeah, it's a confusing one. Anyways, as a result of Tony being evil, Rhodey looks to distance himself from Iron Man, which means him getting a new suit, which looks a bit like a group of, like space bubbles. Also, what is wrong with his helmet? Why is it so round and small? Like, what happened to the shape of James's head? Number 4. Stay gold, Iron Man. Before we had the amazing suits that belong to Tony Stark today, I mean, we could make a few lists based on the best of Iron Man suits if we haven't already. We had the original Avengers version of Iron Man. You may remember this suit from the Iron Man origin story in the MCU, but it looked even less cool and a lot more Tin Man in the Avenger Volume 1 series. So much so that when Iron Man went to save people with it, they didn't even like the look of it. But Tony Stark had a plan to fix this. Update the suit, build a new one, get some cooler gadgets? Nope, nope, and nope. His plan was to paint it gold. And the weird thing is that it worked. Granted, this costume only lasted for a short time in the comics before Tony did end up creating a new suit, but still, it is astonishing that this gold version of his Mark I eyesore somehow made it exponentially better to anyone who saw it painted gold. What? Number 3. Thor. And And back to the crossing we go. Sorry friends, I obviously need to make a top 10 worst superhero costumes from the crossing list. If you want me to delve more into this comic book event for awful looks, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to just delve more into massive events like the crossing in terms of comic lore. During this event, everyone looked awful, but I am not sure if there was anyone worse than Thor. If you thought the flowing locks we see in the MCU on Thor were a bit much, you're gonna love this. His hair was drawn long enough to look like it could just reach past his butt. He is covered in random leather straps, they don't seem to be useful for anything. He's also covered in metal spikes, and Mjolnir for some reason has a chain hanging from it. He is also basically wearing a green crop top. Yep. Number 2. Star Sapphire. A lot of Star Sapphire's outfits have been known for their revealing nature. The sometimes villain, sometimes hero is one of Hal's exes and comes to us from the Pink Lanterns, who stand for love. So it kinda makes sense that they would often prefer to, show off some skin. But there is showing off some skin, and then there is showing off some skin and, breaking the laws of physics. The outfit I'm referring to is one that is a mystery when it comes to how it stayed on. This outfit involves full arm coverage and a very large collar, but about nothing else. Her abdomen is exposed, and who knows how that costume manages to give her enough support in the chest area. It certainly is a strange leotard, which also comes with a headdress that wraps onto her cheeks for that extra coverage. You know how it is. Sins of Star Sapphire? Oh, that costume was a sin. Number 1. Wonder Man. Which costume does one even pick for Wonder Man? They are all terrible. The one of the worst in my mind is when he simply wore a red blazer and sunglasses as a costume, like over a black t-shirt and jeans. Oh, and don't forget that gold chain. Wow. This look comes to us from the Mighty Avengers series, but there have been countless other gaudy appearances from Wonder Man, including his West Coast Avengers look, and let's not forget all the pouches he was given during the 90s in his self-titled series. What is it with pouches? Like, you're a superhero fighting crime, like what do you need to keep in there? Your keys? Some band-aids? Chapstick? Why do people have so many pouches in the 90s?